Hello and welcome to another edition of Agenda 2063 TV show. My name is E.K. Bensah Jr. and I'm your regular host for this show. This series, we're taking a specific look at the African Continental Free Trade Area, but all within the context of Agenda 2063 and what it means for the Africa we want and for ordinary Africans as well. But we also have segments that help also speak to the issue of the Agenda 2063, for which reason we have Africa Peer Review Mechanism Watch, and then we also have EAR in East Africa, which will help listeners and viewers better understand developments around East Africa. We're going to take a break in a minute. We'll be right back.
4 years ago, like most young people, I was clueless as to what I wanted to do and which institution would help me realize a great career. What better place to pursue this dream than Blue Cross College? With state-of-the-art lecture halls and experienced lecturers, as well as equipped computer labs, Blue Crest is indeed the right starting point. With certificate, diploma and degree programs in information technology, business administration, journalism, oil and gas, Blue Crest is the one-stop institute for everyone who is looking to have a great career. Enroll now. Visit www.bluecrest.edu.gh or call any of the numbers on the screen. Blue Crest College. Education for life.
Welcome back from the break, and in today's edition of Africa Peer Review Mechanism Watch, we're going to take you back to a year, July 2019, where the first ever edition of the Youth Symposium of the Africa Peer Review Mechanism was held in N'Djamena, Chad. The whole idea was for the APRM to rally around, bring together youth from all across Africa to have a conversation on understanding democratic governance and understanding especially how APRM works for the youth and with the youth. One of the major outcomes of that meeting, there was a 3-day meeting, was for there to be a youth network. And Chad plays a critical role because His Excellency Idris Deby of Chad was one of the first presidents to actually welcome youth from all over and say that let's have this conference in Chad. A very interesting meeting was held, and finally there is a youth network of APRM, and they've been doing great work. I happen to be on their WhatsApp platform, and they're very active and doing a whole lot of things, trying to rally youth to better understand what the APRM does. And so the whole conversation on APRM is gaining momentum, and we were very happy to be seeing that at least that's also part of fulfilling Agenda 2063. The APRM, as I explained last week, has an expanded mandate to work more closely on Africa's democratic governance, and it is issuing a report at the end of each year. Corona came to disturb the collection of data for this year, but I believe that they've been trying to do it virtually to still collect data on Africa's democratic governance and the parameters that they've been using all this time to understand how African countries monitor and assess their democratic governance. So we'll be giving you more insights and more information on these developments over the course of the next couple of weeks. Welcome back from the break. I'm very happy to be presenting to you EAR on East Africa for the second edition, because this is a very interesting one. There's a lot of developments happening around East Africa, as I explained last week. But one important thing that we probably need to do is to help you understand why East Africa is an important, let's say, element in the whole conversation on Agenda 2063. You will know that the AU has 8 major regional economic communities. We have ECOWAS in West Africa, and in East Africa there are about 3. There's COMESA, there's East Africa Community, and there's IGAD. But when we talk about East Africa specifically, there's East African Community that has 6 countries. There's Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, there's South Sudan, and then there's Burundi. South Sudan is the most recent member, joined about 3 years ago. In fact, 4 years ago, 2016. But for East African community, the very interesting thing about them is that East Africa community, as we know now, is, let's say, part 2 of what it used to be, because East Africa community actually had been around for a long time. In 1967 it started, but then in 1977, because of squabbles between Kenya especially and Uganda and some of the other neighbors, it collapsed. So in 1977, virtually the EAC, they packed everything up and they went home. There was no East Africa community. But somehow in 1999, there started to be talks between some of the old neighbors, and they realized that they needed to come back together. So in 2000, in the year 2000, the East Africa community came back together. And so it came back together with Kenya, the old ones, the old guard, the Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. All of them use shilling. There's Kenya shilling, Uganda shilling, Tanzania shilling. They speak Swahili. That's one of the other things that also unites them, the language as well as the currency. And what we find that in Rwanda joined in 2007, and then Burundi joined much later, and then we also have South Sudan that has joined. But East Africa community in itself, the secretariat is in Arusha, Tanzania, and it has been doing great work on economic integration. And in fact, East Africa community is one of the forerunners of regional economic integration. They're more integrated because of their currency, their language, even in their parliament, East Africa Legislative Assembly. The decisions that are taken in that regional parliament are binding on member states, something which we are struggling to do in West Africa. In West Africa, ECOWAS Parliament is largely, we're still talking rather than necessarily implementing all the things that we talk about. So this is just a little snapshot of East Africa for you to get a sense that things are happening there as well, and there's also a lot of synergy that we can pick from there. Last week I talked about mobile money coming from East Africa. Today I had the experience that in the Uber drive here, my driver did not have mobile money at all. So I was compelled to go around and you know, get money out. This would not have happened in East Africa, where almost everybody, because of developments around the mobile money, has a mobile money wallet. So these are some of the best practices and things that we need to start thinking through when we talk about different regions. So thank you for this edition. We'll give you some more exciting insights next week. Reprising the whole issue of African Integration Day. We've brought back Dr. Joseph Atta-Mensah from UN Economic Commission for Africa. Thank you very much for spending your time with us once again on this show, because you have a lot of important insights, and from what we understand last week, your perspective on the development and the protagonist was very, very, very important and very useful for people to understand how Africa's integration has progressed. What we're going to do in today's show is to re-look at some of the key protagonists that you think we need to take away we need to do a takeaway with that. And then we'll also take a look at AU reforms with a specific focus on financing the union. There's no gainsaying that no integration can happen without money. We need money to be able to do all the projects that we talk about, whether it's a visa-free regime, whether it's common external tariff, or these things. We need money to be able to do it. So how do we raise, what has the AU been doing around raising money and departing from the donor-driven mentality that had dogged it for many years? But let's get back to the concluding last week's conversation, where we were taking a look at some of the key protagonists that dominated the African integration landscape. I think we ended with Gaddafi. I think we went from CERTA Declaration, then we went to Mbeki in 2000. Okay. And then maybe you can take it from there. Some of the other key players whom you think we need to remember.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for bringing me back. It's always a delight to be talking to you on integration matters. Okay. As we ended last week, we had indicated that judging our development, Africa's development, should start from 2002. When the AU was formed. After 1994, we had like I said, the apartheid being broken, and you had the Nelson Mandela being the first from prison to president in 94, and then handing over to President Mbeki, Mbeki Obasanjo, Ward forming, bringing in the framework of NEPAD, supported by Ghana's own son, K.Y. Amakun, with the ECA. And then we got to 2002, the first meeting, the 2001, the first meeting of NEPAD, and the last meeting of the Organization of African Unity, 2002, the birth of the African Union. So I think I judge that our development must be assessed from 2002. Nevertheless, countries have progressed since then. I mean, it's been over 50 years, going to 60, that many African countries have had their independence. So the question then was, you know, what are the main players, key players that has come as a result of that? And I know we're going to dig into the issue of the financing, and I will come to that. But I think it's important for us to realize that we also had the African peer review mechanism, which you started talking about, which is the same as the NEPAD. And those who were very instrumental in the African peer review mechanism was President Bouteflika of Algeria. You also had President Mbeki, of course, President Mbeki. But guess what? Which country was first to be peer reviewed?
Ghana.
Ghana. Yeah. And I remember that we were in Khartoum, Sudan, at the time, when President Kufuor, Jonajukum Kufuor, discussed and introduced the report of the review on Ghana. And you know, the review is not necessarily, you know, criticizing you or not. It is rather helping you to strengthen your governance structure. Right? So therefore, when you look at the governance structure, it is not only the question of whether you have fair and free elections, right? But is it that your resources are allocated in a way that, you know, my relatives in Nsuta, Nsuta in the Ashanti region, also benefit from the pie from Accra, right? How is the districts in Ekroponkwapim, how are they being helped? How is the village in Wale Wale or Paga? How are they benefiting from the resources, which is central? Don't forget, we are not federal, right?
Yes, yeah.
So everything is centralized in Accra.
Yes.
But you have to make sure that it goes there. So he was, they reviewed, and he realized that, he needed 1 billion at the time.
Wow.
To fix the problems that he was told to. So they told him, no, you don't have to look for the 1 billion. Yes, but try and address them through what you call your national plan of action, right? So, for instance, your planning should incorporate some of these things that have been mentioned. But I think, yes, he's right, President Kufuor is right, that it is costly.
Yes.
It's not only about free and fair elections, but to make sure. And even he mentioned the question of campaign finance reforms then, in 2007, right? Talking about the fact that in campaign financing reforms, how do you handle it?
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a lot of money involved in electioneering, right? So anyway, and there's one puzzle which I didn't talk about, which when we're talking about Gaddafi, talking about the union, right? Yeah. And I forgive me if I appear very biased, no, but I'm just stating the facts as they are.
Okay.
We were in Sharm el-Sheikh. I cannot remember the exact period. I think it was the last June, and I think that would be the end of President Kufuor coming back. So it must have been 2011 then. 2000. When was the? It must be also 2007, maybe. Okay. Because Atta-Mensah came in 2008, right? Am I correct?
Yeah.
My facts are a bit mixed up.
Yeah, 2008. Yeah.
Because President Kufuor would have served two terms, 8 years, from 2002.
Yeah, Mills came in 2012.
So it was 2011. Yeah. Sorry, that's because I do remember a vote of thanks being given by President Laurent Gbagbo in Sharm el-Sheikh, of all places, you know, with President Mubarak was in chair, who was there for the meeting. And our own Tanzania President Kikwete was then the chair of the AU at the time. So one thing which I think, not sounding biased because I'm from Ghana, but Kufuor mentioned, I'm sorry to call him Kufuor, President Kufuor said, look, you can talk about, union government or what have you, but if you do not reform your institution, the secretariat of the union, right, it is not going to be functional. So he felt that the important thing is for us to reform the AU Commission itself so as to be in a position to deliver for the African Union. It's so equally important that when you talk about the African Union, it's not the same as the African Union Commission. I think we tend to make the mistake. The Union is the 55 countries, member states that come together to form the Union. The secretariat of that Union is the African Union Commission.
So the administrative, they are the ones that do the groundwork.
And they don't make any decision. They implement the decisions of the African Union. Right? So it's important that we get that. At times we all tend to misplace. So that was his point. And so you needed to do that, to do that. But having said that, in terms of the union, so we had 2002 to 2013.
Wow.
Why do I say 13? 2013 is 50 years after the Organization of African Unity was formed. So on the 25th of May, 2013, African leaders gathered at the same spot where the AU was born, the OAU was born, the African Organization of African Unity was born. The same place, which is the Africa Hall at the ECM. And at that meeting, there was a discussion of asking if right? We've come this far, 50 years.
Yes.
What kind of Africa do you want? 50 years' time, when the leaders gather together on the 25th of May, 2063, what would they be looking at?
Yes. And of course, some people feel that it's too far into the future.
Yeah. So that is why the birth of the Agenda 2063.
Yeah.
Right? Which is based on ensuring prosperity, and based on inclusiveness of the people. It's based on being able to, at the time, we would be well developed. And I think there's one thing that we all have to mention, that Madame Zuma,
yes,
Zuma, yeah, who was then the chair, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, was very instrumental.
Yes,
very instrumental in laying down the Agenda 2063 in terms of a vision of the type of Africa that we want to see 50 years from the time they met on the 25th of May 2013. President Mahama represented Ghana then. Yeah. And he spoke eloquently about his dream about the type of Africa he wanted. African leaders are there. There's a booklet that contains the speeches of all the presidents who were president, and that book includes the speeches that were made on the 23rd of on the 25th of May 1963. Wow. And the speeches that were made by the heads of states who were present there at 25th of May 2013. And it's beautiful. Fantastic. And the book exists. I could share. I could look for a copy for you. For the speeches. We'll be very happy to take a look at that. Just very quickly, a small correction. Mills came in 2008, and 2011 left in 2011. Of course, he passed in July 2011. So President Kufuor came in 2000. Yes. Then. Yeah, thanks for the correction. Because in my mind, I thought 2007. Okay. Yeah, because it was 2007 in Sharm el-Sheikh. Okay. That discussion was had to see Kufuor off. I remember very well the question of President Kufuor being evaluated because of the fact that it was in January 2000. I think it's 2006. Let's go back. Okay. That's January 2006. Okay. In Khartoum. Okay. That's when Ghana's APRM. Okay. So many days, so you get... So many, yes. There's a lot going on, which already tells you that African leaders have actually been doing quite a lot. But it's the communication of these activities. So you know, people we talk about these things and we think that we've not gone far, right? But we've done a lot of... We've made progress. Yeah. We've made progress in that sense. And so it's instructive that at least in the maiden edition of African Integration Day, it's good to be going back and refreshing our memories on these things, because I was reading something the other day. They're talking about why they even decided, the AU decided to celebrate African Integration Day, and the whole idea was that with the coming on of the African Continental Free Trade Area, it was presumed that African Integration Day would be an opportunity to also reflect on the progress and the momentum made on the African Continental Free Trade Area. Although we now know that it has been postponed to 2021, I think it still offers an opportunity for people to see the speed with which the whole process has gone. Because even when you talk to other experts in the field, they will tell you that when you look at other free trade agreements at the WTO and otherwise, some have been going on. The Uruguay round has been going on for decades. It's still going on. It's still going on. And yet you have the African Continental Free Trade Area with Kagame in chair of the AU, just making sure that other African countries are really, you know, appending their signature to this thing and ratifying. So now we're waiting for Eritrea to be, you know... to be a signatory. But let me say this, though. I mean, to get the Secretariat here... I think it wasn't that easy. At all, Okay? It might appear easy, but it wasn't that easy. Kenya could have snatched it from us. So Kenya, Eswatini. Eswatini, even Eswatini. Right? Eswatini wanted it. Egypt wanted it. Ethiopia wanted it.
Yeah.
Senegal wanted it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you know, I keep telling my friends at the foreign ministry that they need to document how they achieved this CFTA, because there's a lot of diplomacy, a lot of shuttling between Accra and major capitals, if not all the capitals, to convince countries to support Ghana's bid. Right? So I think in that sense, you know, it's an election year, so I don't want to pretend that I want to give credit to Nana Akufo-Addo to score some points, some brownie points. No. But it's just I'm being factual about this, rather not to appear partisan, is that the president of this country, as the president, did a lot. Did a lot. And I think if any credit to ensure he laid down his political capital to ensure that this secretariat came to Ghana. And of course, he was supported by his ministers. I
and
said,
even Rollins, as well, I understand.
I said, you know, they went on, what do you call it, junketing, diplomatic junketing, trying to convince countries to, and also I cannot forget, Nana Otumfuo Opoku-Ware, Nana Santini, Osejitu, the second, very instrumental, behind the scene.
Behind the scenes,
Behind the scenes. So, I mean, these things have to be told, you know, that the ordinary person might think that, you know, it was given to Ghana because, you know, you have handsome people like you in Ghana, you know. But it requires effort, and it requires commitment. And it was not even with these personalities behind. It was not a done deal in Niamey. It was not a done deal in Niamey.
Niamey, of course, being the place where
Niamey, Niger is where the discussions and the decision was made. It had to be postponed on a debate. When the voting needed to be done, it was postponed because there were still some challenges. And of course, it happened the following day. So kudos to Ghana.
Kudos to Ghana. And on that note, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back in a minute. Welcome back from the break. So before the break, you were talking about the impressive groundwork that President Akufo-Addo made with his ministers and a whole slew of other personalities as well to ensure that Ghana gets a secretariat of AFTA. And I understand also, if we could just spend a few minutes trying to explain the significance of the AFTA secretariat, because I understand that it's not just a secretariat where it will just be manned, you know, some six desks manned by, you know, officers, but an impressive organization that will seek to do the groundwork and do the administrative work for this whole free trade area of about 1.2 billion people. I think people need to understand a little bit more that the secretariat belies what the name secretariat actually belies what it's seeking to do for the continent.
Well, I think, you know, when you talk about the secretariat of a trade, for trade to you know, so pretend the trading arrangements. it's not an easy thing.
Yeah.
You know, you're looking at the likes of WTO. I mean, that's our comparison. This is Africa's World Trade Organization, but it's the Africans one. So, you know, you're pitching to that level, and you're looking at, you know, managing a $3 trillion trade that's going to happen when all said and done, right?
Yeah.
So, right now, you have the 4 floors of the
Africa Trade House.
Africa Trade House, being where the Secretariat will be manned.
Okay.
The directors who are going to come in. But with time, you know, you would have more personnel depending on how the demands are. And I think, I'm just guessing, I don't have a fact to it. I think in the end, Ghana would have to probably build its own complex, a bigger complex somewhere, to host, either take the whole building or go somewhere else to host the Secretariat. So it's going to look, Emmanuel. My view on the Secretariat, right, which Ghana has now. I think, let me just say the benefit to Ghana a little bit, and then I'll talk about why I think we need a strategy around it. One, you have a Secretariat, right? You have the Secretary General, His Excellency Kelly, coming to town. Kelly, His Excellency Mr. Kelly, Main, needs a house. He has a house. He's married. The wife will come. Maybe work. He has kids or has a child. I don't know. Who would need what? Schooling. Kelly would have to eat. He needs a chef or a cook or whatever you want to call it. He has to be protected. He needs a guard. He has to be chauffeured. He needs a driver. So just him. How many employment have I constructed here? About 10. Multiply that by the number of foreign staff who are going to come in. They will need kids, their kids' schooling, their health care, all that. Banking, telephone, and all that. So just having the Secretariat here, just the personnel alone is generating income. It's going to generate rental income for some people, Ghanaians, right? But for me, I think that is even a small part of it, of the game, right? We started talking about this last time. Having the Secretariat here. The Secretariat, if the trading has to go on, you need high-speed internet, right?
That's it.
Right? Who is going to provide this high-speed internet? Right? You have to, people are going to develop the IT sector. So it becomes a means, right? You're talking about your experience with Uber. It becomes a means that Ghana can fast-track this digitization. IT becomes key. I know that in some circles and in some meetings, Honorable Ken Oforiatta has been talking about trying to make Ghana a financial hub, right? So you have trading taking place here. What do you do? Have a strategy around how you're going to make Ghana a financial hub. It's important. The benefits, you know, I know, it's tremendous. Just COVID has prevented, but we'll find there'll be a cure for COVID, and travel will resume, meetings will come. So what happens then? Because of the Secretariat, there are going to be conferences here discussing issues related to trade. The hotel beds will be needed, right? Hotel food will be needed, right? Hotel entertainment will be needed. A beer would have to be consumed. Malt would have to be consumed, right? So it's an added value. That tourism could be boosted. People coming in here, some of the meetings, I hope, will not only be in Accra. Some of the meetings could take place in other parts, you know, retreats and all that. So with this itself, you know, I think the Ghana investment promotion can begin to look at drawing up an investment strategy or a strategy around just having the trade.
Yes.
Right. I talked to you about last time when I said the chamber, somebody came to see me about what are the benefits in terms of, to talk about the benefits of free trade for businesses. And I told you that the Americans have figured it out, the Chinese have figured it out, the EU have figured it out. Why can't the Chamber of Commerce here organize for itself a strategy around how they can get Ghanaians to benefit from the free trade area? I give an example about my own mother's country, my mother's city, town, where the new king could, you know, turn the cocoa being grown in his area into chocolate. And they added addition. So you can get the Minister of Agriculture now having a strategy around what? A strategy around value addition.
Yes.
Because farming now, he could look at farming as a business. This is not what you and I, when we grew up, we saw our mothers going to the villages in Suhum or Hidium, where we use cutlass and hoes. Now it becomes an integrated business. And if you do it as a business, the youth would perhaps look at it differently because they would have that kind of mindset, right? So I always give the example in terms of farming, why it's a business. What is the percentage of farmers in America? About 4%. But they have food security, right? We all don't have to. So the youth, we're not telling you everybody should go into farming. You can still become doctors. You can still become accountants. You can still become businesses, owners. You can still do whatever you want. But we just need a fraction, a small number of people going into farming, and it's into high-scale mechanized farming. Right? High-scale mechanized farming, which is the slogan, is to say, right, Ghanaian food on the table of every Ghanaian. Right? So you look at it from how the rice in the north, right? How can we process it, package it in a way that it is served at the tables of Ghanaian every evening? Right? So you don't look at it from the point of view of the farmer tilling the land, right? But you're looking at the farmer tilling the land, the bank coming in, the agriculture extension farmer coming in. You're looking at what do you call it? Mechanized caterpillars, all those things. The combine harvester and all that, right? And then going into the factory, which will remove the will sort the bad ones from it into the packaging, and all of a sudden finding it in the shelves of the supermarket in Accra. And being eaten at the homes of all Ghanaians. So you have to think about the whole chain, and then taking advantage of that to then export also, to see Ghanaian rice in Addis Ababa, to see Ghanaian rice in Zimbabwe, to see Ghanaian rice in Morocco, right? So therefore, it's not only the agricultural minister who has to think about it, about finding fertilizer or finding seeds or whatever. Minister Tremantin should also be thinking about it in terms of the trade, right? Right? In terms of industry, right? Minister Ada, who handles the cargo in terms of aviation, is also in it because he has to look at the airports. He has to look at the cargo coming in. The minister responsible for railways is also into this. He also has to look at how am I going to cut the railway, the goods from Wale Wale or wherever the rice is being manufactured to Accra, right? GCNet, right? Which organizes, here it's changed anyway, but I'm giving an example. The trade facilitation issues, right? All that becomes part of it because they also, whoever is exporting the rice would also have to deal with all the IT setup and trade facilitation. So you see, Emmanuel, I'm just saying that just having the center alone is not important. it is a big deal for bringing it here, but we also have to begin to strategize holistically as to how we can benefit from it. And therefore, that is why, and I'm using it because I'm in Ghana, I'm talking about Ghana, but this is applicable to any African country, you know, so have a strategy around it, right? And therefore, that begins to become an issue from Minister Ayokoboche.
Yes.
Because the Minister Ayokoboche should develop an economic diplomacy around this CFTA, because so that anybody who sits in an embassy, any corner around the world, right, will be able to sell to whoever comes in the products that Ghana has, and how we could be able to bring those goods into your country, like chocolate, right? Yes.
So basically, in wrapping up, I think you've clearly outlined what needs to be done and the important strategies.
Yeah.
Could we just, as we begin to wrap up, just quickly have a brief overview of what then, even as AFTA's about to generate a lot of money and revenue for the continent, at least just quickly touch on the other areas of financing the union, just for the benefit of this.
Sure.
In just 2 minutes.
Sure.
Yes.
So the financing of the union, it's equally important also.
Yes.
So I talked about 25th of May, 2013. Part of the issues on the agenda, 2063, is being able to be sustainable. Now, before then, the AU has 3 lines, budget lines, right? It has the operational budget, it has the programs budget, and it has the peace and security budget. Now, 100% of the program budget is financed by the AU through member state contribution. At the time, about 90%, almost all, if 90%, was financed, programs was financed by the external partners, right? Yes. And then entirely 100% was financed by, peace and security was financed outside, right? Wow. So the question is, you know this saying, right, this adage, that whoever pays the piper calls the tune. Yes. So if your main important aspect, which is, because the operational budget is to pay salaries of staff who are at the commission, but the most important part is the programs. Now, if you are mortgaging that programs to somebody else, then you are in trouble, right? Because they are going to call the tune, right? So therefore, it was decided then in 2015 is that we were going to have 100% operational, 75% programs, and 5% on peace and security. 25% on peace and security, not 5%. 25% on peace and security. So this was passed in Johannesburg, and since I've mentioned President Akufo-Addo, let me also mention John Mahama. He was then in power, then in in Joburg, in Johannesburg, when this was decided on. And then because it was passed, they wanted more deliberations on it. We don't have enough time, so I'll quickly go into. In July 2016, President Kagame invited all the leaders into a retreat in Kigali to decide on what we needed to do in order for us to become sustainable. We've agreed on the 100, 75, 25, right? As I said, operations 100, programs 75, and peace and security 25. This would be covered by member states over a period of time, over 5 years. So we came, how are we going to pay for it? The work we did, ECA and others in the AU, we agreed that it may be required a 0.2% levy on all imports coming into Africa from outside, right? So there was a debate on it. President Mahama spoke eloquently in defense of the recommendation of the 0.2. It was led, the work was led by Dr. Kaberuka, the former
African Development Bank.
President of the African Development Bank, and we all supported in the work of that. And we got it done. So at the moment, the short of it is that at the moment, 17 African countries have embarked on that. are collecting the levy from using using the levy to pay for their contributions to the AU. Yes. 17 countries.
17.
Now, before we go, so after the Kigali 2016, quickly, getting into the reforms, the leaders, after they passed, said, well, if AU is going to be sustainable, then as I go back to President Kufuor, we have to be effective, right? That issue came back again, and they said, now we should revisit the question of the reforms, to reform the AU, to make it more effective. And to make it more effective, it required that, a panel be formed. Kagame was charged with it, and he constituted a Pan-African panel, which advised him on the reforms. And the quick things they've done is, how do we ensure that all these 1,500 decisions that have been made by the AU are implemented. Yes. So the quick one out of it is that, I know we are rushing out of time, is that as a result of the reforms, right, what can we say has been achieved? The AU has been pruned down. You used to have 8 commissioners and 2 president, chairperson and the deputy. Now you're going to have 6 commissioners and the chairperson and the deputy chairperson. Okay. And that's election is coming up next year for these new positions. So how did we get the 6? We quickly had to, they merged the trade and the economic affairs as one, and then peace and security and social, political affairs and peace and security were also merged into one department. Okay. So that's how the savings are done. And quick one, the AU has gender equity, parity. Yes. So now the decision is you're going to get still 4-4. You have 3 commissioners will be women, 3 commissioners will be men. Okay. The chairperson, if the chairperson elected is a woman, the deputy becomes a man, and vice versa. Okay. So as to ensure the parity.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you very much for that very important snapshot of the AU reforms. And I think we will probably need another show someday on the AU reforms to help demystify and unpack it. Yeah. But I think for now, it's been a good show. We've run through the whole Continental Free Trade Area, the Secretariat, what we need to do, and also a bit about the AU reforms. And I think that's been a very nice wrap-up for the whole African Integration Day. So we hope that the next year by this time, when COVID would have ended and hopefully a vaccine would have been found and everyone has gone back to traveling up and down, we'll be able to have come up with strategies that will help to the benefit of a lot of the African countries, and by then hopefully more countries than the 17 would have also paid the
we are hoping to get more countries to the AU is hoping. I say we as if I'm the AU, but I'm at the ECA. But I work closely with them, so the hope is that we'll get more countries. By the way, just a quick one. Okay. I forgot those who were also did well in terms of helping us with helping Ghana with the Secretariat. I shouldn't forget the Chief Director at the Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yankee, and the Ambassador Amachum Amwa in Addis. Addis. They were also very instrumental. And of course, Jubilee House, everybody in Jubilee House was responsible for that.
Okay, fantastic.
I thought I should say that.
Thank you very much for that important addition and clarification as well. And so, on that note, I really want to say thank you once again, Dr. Joe Atta-Mensah, for giving us a lot of your time for this 2-parter on African Integration Day. Clearly and definitely, by the next time that we have a commemoration of the African Integration Day, it'll be a very different ball game. After, we'll definitely be running. COVID will be over, from my lips to God's ears. And the whole African integration landscape will definitely have changed, and the new diplomatic capital that is Accra would be buzzing with activity and so on and so forth. A lot of things will be happening. So thank you very much for joining us and also spending time with us to help follow the whole discussion. Please remember to follow the discussion at AAU_67 on Twitter, Association of African Universities on Facebook and YouTube. And remember that you can get all the videos of this show also on YouTube and the website, as well as Twitter and Facebook. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. We hope to speak with you next week, where we'll bring you another exciting edition of Agenda 2063 TV show. Thank you once again. Have a great day. Goodbye.